being is because he doesn't do a whole bunch of maintenance to his dreadlocks. Or let's put it this way, he has kind of like a semi-freeform style of dreadlocks, and the reason being is because he'll maintain his dreadlocks and then he'll like not maintain them for quite some time. This is what I call semi-freeform, and semi-freeform is essentially just maintaining your hair but then also not maintaining your hair for quite some time. So it's almost like you give time off on your dreadlocks. So for instance, you do a retwist, but then you don't retwist your hair for maybe the next couple months. So then you're retwisting your hair like every 2 months. That's what I would call semi-freeform. Or maybe you retwist your hair every 6 months. You only retwist your hair maybe once a year. That's what I would like to call semi-freeform. So I'd put it this way, you're doing less maintenance than you would be doing maintenance. I'll put it that way. But then again, I feel like I spoke too soon on this video. He does do quite a bit maintenance now, but during the beginning stages, he didn't do much, which we typically see with a lot of people. And I completely understand, especially with myself starting dreadlocks now. During the beginning stages, it's kind of tedious doing any sort of maintenance just because your hair is not maturing as quick as you would like it to. It's almost as if your hair matures quicker if you do less maintenance. So I can completely understand where a lot of rappers like Sway Lee, Lil Baby, Lil Wayne even did this to where he didn't do too much maintenance at the beginning. And like I said, we see it with Lil Baby now. But the hairstyles that he's been doing lately are so cool. It's almost like the ASAP Rocky braids, but with dreadlocks. And I like how clean his retwists are, and it just presents itself so nicely, especially in the hairstyles that he does. So like I said, we've been seeing this hairstyle quite a bit with Lil Baby, and like how I mentioned earlier on in the video about the semi-freeform, you can see even with his hair being in the hairstyle that it is quite frizzy at the top. But guys, that's to be expected. One thing to know about dreadlocks is you have to constantly maintain frizz. Anybody with dreadlocks has frizz. And if they don't, it's because they just maintained it. Because essentially all dreadlocks are frizzy sections combined. And then you maintain that with, you know, retwisting, crochet hooking, and so on and so forth. But I truly think we can all agree that all the hairstyles that he's been doing lately are really cool to see. And to be honest, I didn't expect that from Lil Baby, especially with how his dreadlocks started out looking kind of freeform. But like how I mentioned Sway Lee earlier on, we've seen him start out almost completely freeform, with most likely doing sponge rub at the beginning, and then the hairstyles he did after his hair was completely mature were really clean. So it's really cool seeing that transformation from a freeform or semi-freeform looking style dreadlocks, and then going to completely mature and hairstyled locks. And not only has he been doing the braids or the barrel rolls down the sides, he's been doing them to the back as well, and it just looks really clean. One thing I appreciate about Lil Baby's dreadlocks is that he has somewhat of a full head of dreads. Of course he has a taper fade, but it's not very typical for someone to have a full set of dreadlocks like Lil Baby. And here we go again with this hairstyle. I'm telling you, it's just a really cool looking hairstyle. And I think seeing his dreadlocks has really encouraged myself to continue on with getting a full set of dreads. And then even seeing his taper fade kind of encourages me to start getting a taper fade, but I'm gonna wait until my hair matures a little bit more to see what it looks like. But one thing we see with a lot of people, same with Lil Baby, is that tapered front hairline. And I'm telling you, having the tapered hairline makes a difference with the way your locks look. It makes everything look a lot more cleaner, and especially pairing it with the taper fade, or even if you have a high top fade, it just makes the cut look so much better. Another thing we've seen Lil Baby start to do is the 2-strand twist. And I'm telling you, on the first update that I did on Lil Baby's dreadlocks, I really wasn't too impressed. And I say that very lightly just because they were in the beginning stages, and it's really hard to kind of stand out with your dreadlocks when they're in the beginning stages, just because everyone's almost looked the same. But now seeing his dreadlocks in a very mature state and how clean his sections are is very encouraging, and it's really inspiring to actually shoot for that kind of style of dreadlocks. And the 2-strand twists look really good on him, to be honest. But overall, I think this is the most iconic hairstyle that he's been wearing lately. And you really don't see people wearing their hair like this with dreadlocks, so it's really cool to see. But if we look at the overall aspect of his dreadlocks and why do they look so clean, if you're asking yourself that question, how do I get my hair to look that way? Step 1, do you have a tapered hairline? Because that makes everything look so much more cleaner. Step 2, do you have a fresh retwist? And do you have square sections? And then step 3 is get the hairstyle just like his. It's a very clean and very nice looking hairstyle. It's the barrel twists, or whatever you want to call them, the braids. This is a very popular hairstyle, and this is a hairstyle that I really liked to do on myself when I had my first set of dreadlocks. And it's very easy to do, actually. Now guys, in this last photo, I was just really appreciative of that taper fade and how clean his hair looks in this double braid back. And sheesh, it looks so clean, especially with the full set of dreads, with the exception of the taper fade, of course. But let's face it, if you have dreadlocks that are on your temples, those dreadlocks typically turn out a little bit more thin just because the hair on your head right there is a little more thin. So I would honestly encourage you to get a taper fade if you have a full set of dreads, because if you have a fresh retwist but it still doesn't look that clean, it's typically because you don't have a taper fade or a tapered hairline.